How's it going? I am putting this little video together to give a good idea of what COVID has been like for a small business, a restaurant in Idaho, and how things are going and what's to be expected, or at least what we think might be to be expected. So, we started our restaurant, Barbecue for Life, in 2013 as a mobile unit. We did that for about 7 months or 8 months and then moved into our first brick and mortar location. We were there for a year. When that building sold, we signed a lease on the place we are currently at and have been doing pretty good ever since. Year over year, growth was great. We just continued to grow and grow in a painful way. We didn't start out with any cash flow, so all of that growth is really expensive. While that's good in some ways, it's bad in other ways. Regardless, we made it through, got to a point where we were profitable and efficient, and everything was going really, really good. We were starting to look at expanding and considering other locations and things of that nature. And then COVID hit. So that put the brakes on everything. So when we saw what was starting to happen with COVID and there were talks about potential shutdowns, we took it very serious and we actually shut down, I think, a week or 2 weeks prior to, you know, the mandatory shutdown aspect happening, mostly just out of safety. Better safe than sorry. We figured we were sitting on a little bit of money and we could make it through if we had to, a few weeks or a month or whatever without any serious damage to the business. And that way, potentially, we're safer and our employees and our customers are all safer. So that's what we did. We shut down. That ended up being what, like 2 months or whatever it was. During the course of that shutdown, we were able to secure a PPP loan, which then we were able to get basically all of our employees paid during the shutdown and not on unemployment, um, which wasn't optimal for like the servers because the servers make the majority of their money in tips. So even though we bumped them up to, substantially higher hourly pay than what they were normally getting, it still wasn't as good as if they were working. But whatever, we got through that part. While we were shut down, realizing that when we do open up, things aren't going to be the same and business isn't going to be the same more than likely. We slashed our menu to make the whole restaurant more efficient just in case things didn't go very well upon reopening. That worked out okay. Our average ticket went down because the servers, there's not as much stuff on the menu, so there's just not as much upsell available. So that hurts a little bit, but overall, we're still more efficient because of it. It's a bit of a drag for our customers that some of their favorite items are just not available anymore. But honestly, if we hadn't made that change, we might not be open today. I don't regret it at this point. So as we go about getting the menu changed and figuring out what sort of protocols we need to put in place to make sure that our employees are safe and our customers are safe, just a lot of time talking with the county and getting a good idea of how we're supposed to operate and move forward, and then we get to reopen. And I think we were maybe open for a month, and we had one of our employees test positive for COVID, so we shut it all down again. And I think it was for 10 days, paid for everybody to get tested, and then didn't reopen until we had nothing but clear tests of people coming back. So that was another painful financial drain there. And as we get back open again, we start to realize that consumer habits are changing pretty dramatically. If you have a drive through and decent food, at this time, especially a few months back, you are slammed. If you are doing DoorDash or Grubhub or Uber Eats, you're pretty busy too if your food was pretty decent. If you're a place like us that we don't have a drive through, we're not really built for to goes, it's pretty painful. We were able to adjust and figuring out how to be more efficient with to goes. We did end up signing up with DoorDash, which I hate those companies. They take, unless you get a deal with them, they take 25% of the sale from the restaurant, and at a time when the businesses that they survive off of are just barely scraping by, those companies aren't doing anything to be helpful. They're literally still just, yeah, 25% if you want to do business with us. So we're sort of in a position where we don't have a choice. It's bringing in more business, so we're doing it. But basically, I don't see that habit changing over the next year. Once habits set, they're hard to break. And people are very used to using those services or just hitting a drive through. I wish we could put a drive through in at our place, but we can't. So we have to figure out a way around it. Another thing that's really hard to deal with is the mask freaks, be it deniers or zealots. So we're put in this position where we have to police what the county and city are mandating, right? Wear a mask. Even though we have to scold you, not scold you, but we have to ask you to put a mask on if you step foot in our business. And then you take 5 steps to your table and take your mask off and sit there. None of it makes a whole lot of sense. Besides that, it's not up to us, especially at this point. If we're not making sure that people are wearing masks when they're supposed to, our license gets pulled. So we can't operate as a business. And we get people that want to freak out on other customers that aren't wearing them. We get people that just refuse to wear them, write us bad reviews because we asked them to put a mask on. Just a total nightmare of people being thoughtless. Just throw a mask on. It's not a big deal. And it's not up to us anyway. So that part's really frustrating. Trying to plan for the future or what the future even looks like. Yeah, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if we're up for an economy that's going to grow or keep crumbling. But the thing to realize that's happening to small businesses, restaurants especially, if they're still in business, it's not just that there's not as many customers. There's a few things that are impacting restaurants really badly. One is not as many customers. Two, the customers that are left typically are not spending as much money. And then three, cost of goods. The cost of goods fluctuates all over the place. One week it's this group of items that are impossible to get a hold of, so the price skyrockets 200% on them. The next week it's a totally different group of items that we use, be it pork or beef or paper goods or whatever, eggs, who knows what. Prices are jumping 100%, 200%, 300%. Then they fall back down to normal pricing. And it all happens so fast that it's not like we can just adjust our menu prices based on it because it's moving so quickly. For example, tri-tip, which is one of our main selling items, it jumped up like an easy 300%. And that was extremely hard for us to deal with. We did have to adjust prices on it. Most of the customers were totally understanding about it and didn't take issue with it. But the issue is we're still trying to be of value to our customers. So the idea of just constantly bumping up prices when things go up isn't appealing to us because we know what kind of effect that will have on the customers, especially if it becomes a weekly or monthly thing where prices just keep bumping up and bumping up. It's really hard to deal with. So what happens is those items become much less profitable. And we're already sort of a premium product where we don't have big profit margins on most of the menu items. We have profit margins that allow us to survive, making a living, not a killing. Well, that's not a great business model for the environment we're in right now. It's very painful one right now. There's small businesses all across the country, hundreds of thousands of businesses that have already gone out, and this is going to get worse. So I just kind of want to get this information out there so people understand. If you might not have insight into what it's like for small businesses right now, but it's brutal. I mean, that could be gyms, that could be coffee shops, whatever small businesses are getting hurt right now. If you got stock in Amazon, you're doing great. And I don't, nothing against Amazon. They're providing a service that people want right now. So good for them. But do keep in mind your small businesses. We're trying to figure out what the future is even going to look like. Best case scenario, I typically won't even consider the best case scenario because the odds of that happening are extremely slim. I tend to plan for the worst case scenarios. Not just we tend to plan for the worst case scenarios. The worst case scenario is we keep, as a country, we're keep moving on this path where there's a lot of uncertainty and the economy's not picking up. If that happens, we're going to have to make some sort of major change. Um, we're considering all sorts of different options. We're by no means are we going to give up. We'll try everything we can to try and survive it. We just don't know what that's going to look like. We have 28, somewhere around 28 employees that we fully intend to keep employed as long as we can. It's just figuring out how to do that is going to be the big challenge. So yeah, I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight on what is happening for small businesses. I can't speak for everybody. I don't speak for everybody. I'm giving you a very personal view into what this has been like for our small business. Just the idea that we're going to try to figure out a way through. I hope this all comes to an end pretty soon, and I just can't imagine what it's like for those families that have lost their business and that's it. How are they going to restart? Now they're just carrying a bunch of debt and they don't have anything producing income for them. For one, to be able to service their debt, for two, to be able to grow, start over, do any of that. I can't imagine putting myself in their shoes. Man, that feels terrible. So we're gonna keep fighting and try everything we can to keep it going and to stay alive. So it's hard for everybody. But just keep in mind, if you've got friends or family that have a small business, that they might be going through the roughest time that they've ever seen. And we've been doing this for years, and it's about as rough as it's ever been. So, yeah. If you have any questions you'd like to ask me, go ahead and leave a comment. I'll make sure to do my best to answer any questions. And yeah, have a good one. Stay safe.